communications to any potential enemy, who must then do something about it. And anything he does is going to be an act of war.
Well, for many years, one of the reasons was the Cold War. We did not want the Soviets to know what we knew. And then later we found out that the Soviets knew pretty much about it as much as we did. The implications of the conclusions of the study were so astounding that the decision was made that they could not release this information because it would be terribly disruptive to the populations of Europe and the United States, actually to the populations of the world, that we were being surveyed by highly advanced, high-technology extraterrestrial cultures. One of the major conclusions was that one of those civilizations, the people looked exactly like we did. And that troubled the military people in SHAPE headquarters because it became quite apparent to them that these aliens could put on a suit and a tie or sport jacket, sit next to you in a restaurant, sit next to you on a bus, or walk up and down the corridors of SHAPE headquarters, and you'd never know. That troubled the generals a lot.
At a conference in the Pentagon, the Central Intelligence Agency decided to pass, to quote verbally from the release protocols, a broad educational program integrating efforts of all concerned agencies with two major aims, training and debunking. The debunking aim would result in reduction of public interest in flying saucers. The armed forces received the order to collect and evaluate UFO reports and to release only misleading explanations to the public. According to Air Force Regulation 202 from August 26, 1953, it was explicitly prohibited to release UFO reports to the news media until the object is positively identified as a familiar object. And the Joint Chiefs of Staff Instruction JANIP 146 declared UFO sightings to merit reports containing information affecting the national defense within the espionage laws, prohibiting the unauthorized transmission or revelation in any manner under the penalty of up to 10 years imprisonment. Commander Bethune experienced the further handling of UFO reports.
To my knowledge, there was no thorough investigation made. When we landed at Argentia in Uflin, an Army intelligence officer, a captain, was sent to interrogate us. He interrogated us, and he made a report that I learned later was sent to Wright-Patterson. When we arrived at the Naval Air Station Test Center, Patuxent River, Maryland, outside of Washington, again we had Navy intelligence to interrogate us, and we had to write a description ourselves and a report. And of course that was submitted through channels to the Navy in Washington, which I later found out then went to the Air Force. So it was up to the Air Force pretty much, because of the different project, Grudge, Blue Book, or what have you, to do the investigation. They were accepting all the reports of any unusual objects that were seen by the military, to my knowledge.
Were you asked to be silent about this incident?
It was in a kind of a roundabout way. It was not really a warning. It was just the type of thing that, to where that we were pretty much told that not to talk about it. I mean, we got the impression, or I got the impression, that it was a type of thing that I probably wouldn't even talk to my wife about. I didn't know. So I would say that as far as the interrogation by the intelligence officers, that's kind of the impression that they left. I did have the Commodore who ran our air wing at the time call me in and for me to describe the sighting to him, and he pretty much led me to believe that it was the type of thing that I really shouldn't talk about, and not that they were trying to discredit anything that we're doing, but it was just something that we were not, should not talk about, really. And I don't ever recall them saying, you know, ordering us not to say anything about it.
What were the results of the official investigation of the incident?
The report had gone to Project Grudge, evidently Project Blue Book, and I think the final conclusion on the report of Project Twinkle was that it was an unusual display of the aurora borealis.
How did you react to this explanation, and what made you sure it was wrong?
Well, many things, because of the fact that we were headed south. The northern lights are usually behind you. We had been all experienced pilots flying in that area, and we would know it was a clear night, and we would know if there was any display because of the weather reports. It was normally part of the weather report. We had passed over the weather ship, the guard ship, maybe a couple hours before, and it was nothing that said anything about the weather. Plus the fact the object was definitely below the horizon, was definitely originated its path from the water, and it was always between us and the water, never above us. So it was always below the aircraft.
How big was it and how did it look like?
It was, my estimate was around between 200 and 300 feet in diameter, and after I got the reports out of the archives, I noticed that all the pilots that were really in the cockpit, their estimate, the two of us, was basically about the same. It was circular, and it had a little bit of a dome on top, and at the time we could see that good. It was above the horizon. It was not sitting level. It was just sitting at a little bit of an angle.
What do you believe it was?
My conclusion that this was a craft that was not constructed here on the Earth. It was a craft with some kind of intelligence control, and we possibly ran up on what they were doing, whether they were doing some type of research on our water or what, and it came out to take a look at us and to see if, naturally, if we were hostile, and being a transport with no weapons or no gun, I guess they determined that we were not. And so they left back and basically 180 degrees from the direction they approached.
Why do you think they came to such a nonsensical explanation as that it was just an aurora borealis?
I feel at that time that there were probably a lot of sightings, and I feel it was an easy way to come to a conclusion that would not be questioned, and to get it off of their back, so to speak, because I guess they had a lot of questions, they had a lot of reports, and then of course I have had the suspicion for quite some time that it was of such a classified nature that they did not want the information to be published. In fact, when I asked the intelligence officer that questioned us at Patuxent River what his opinion was, and why they wanted to keep something like that quiet, well, the answer he gave me was that one of the things that they were afraid of was mass hysteria, whether the public couldn't accept it at that time, and he used as an example, and I've heard later it was used many times, that the Orson Welles program on radio many years ago, the panic that the people went through when they thought that the Martians were coming.
Thanks to this policy of cover-up and secrecy, the evidence becoming public was just the peak of the iceberg. One of the films released from the Blue Book archives was taken on April 15, 1967, from a Coast Guard helicopter at Catalina Island off the coast of California. Another one is the footage shot in 1956 in the state of Utah, showing two discs passing a boulder at an incredible speed, here again in slow motion. Or this film taken by a civilian employee near Luke Air Force Base in Texas in 1959. A jet tries to intercept the object. This amazing series of photographs of a Saturn-shaped craft flying around the peak of the island of Trinidad in the Atlantic Ocean was taken on January 19, 1958 by an official photographer of the Brazilian Navy aboard the Navy training ship Almirante Saldanha in the presence of the whole crew. After the official analysis proved the object to be at least 120 feet in diameter, the Brazilian President Juscelino Kubitschek presented the pictures personally at a press conference on February 20th, 1958. Not before 1985 did the National Aeronautics and Space Administration release UFO footage taken by their astronauts in terrestrial and lunar orbit. This film was taken in 1956 by astronaut James McDivitt aboard Gemini 4, one day before he photographed the cylindrical UFO in Earth's orbit. One day before the historic landing on the moon on July 20th, 1969, the Apollo 11 crew filmed these two luminous objects in lunar orbit. On an Apollo 12 film, a bright object flies about the lunar surface at great speed. Let's magnify it and analyze its flight pattern. Here, a dome-shaped disk of obviously giant size hovers next to the moon. And here it appears that two UFOs have landed on the lunar surface. When we magnify it, we recognize further details. Do extraterrestrials have bases on the moon? This official British Airways film was taken in the early 70s on one of the Concorde test flights over southern England. Clearly we see a small bell-shaped probe surrounding the supersonic plane, hovering for seconds in front of the engines. Also, in the once Soviet Union, the UFOs created much attention. The famous test pilot Colonel Dr. Marina Popovich collects reports of her fellow pilots about UFO sightings.
There are many examples. I got hundreds of letters from our pilots. Altogether, I know about 4,000 of such reports. I received one letter from Vyatkin, one of our test pilots, and I met with him. He flew one of our MiG-19 jet interceptors when he had a strange encounter. He had just reached an altitude of 15,000 feet when he had the impression that his aircraft collided with something and started to spin. The MiG-19 is a very strong aircraft. The pilot went further down and tried to win altitude, but again he was pressured down. He tried it a third time when he saw a beam, a silverish beam, coming from a large object, and he realized it was a UFO. He turned around, flying a circle, and went in for landing. He was very emotional after that.
We can just assume how much UFO evidence is being held back from the public. But we get quite a good impression when we study the latest events on the Caribbean island of Puerto Rico, the so-called 51st state of the USA, a quasi-colony without the right to vote, investigated by the local journalist Jorge Martin.
There have been many incidents in which UFOs have been seen over inhabited areas by many people, and at the same time military aircraft such as AWAC radar planes, or maybe even as explained by the witnesses, F-14 Tomcats, jet fighters, or some aircraft from the Puerto Rico Air National Guard that have been seen chasing these objects. In some occasions there have been some incidents in which people say there seems to be some struggle between the UFOs and the jet fighters, and in some occasions military personnel has been seen in these places checking the situation. This happened in December 28, 1988 at 7:45 p.m. The people of the area of Cabo Rojo and Lajas, two towns to the southwest of the island, that night saw a very huge ball of blue light, as we see here in the drawing, and that was flying over the Sierra Bermeja Mountains, a small ridge there where many of these incidents have been happening in Puerto Rico. And then this ball of light changed, and it changed to another color, to a huge ball of yellowish light, and the witnesses all could see that this was part of a triangular craft, very big in size, and this yellow light was underneath the object. It was a almost semicircular, something like a bulge or a ball of yellow light, very bright, and the two jet fighters were trying to intercept it, and in 3 different occasions made it veer away and change its trajectory, its direction. In the third occasion, the object stopped in midair. One of the jet fighters seemed to as if it was going to collide with the object by the back of it, and the people began screaming because they believed there was going to be a collision and an explosion and something terrible might happen. But what happened was that the jet fighter just disappeared, vanished in midair, next to the UFO. The other jet fighter kept flying next to it, by the right side of it, and then all of a sudden, it also disappeared. It vanished. The UFO then came back again, turned around, flew over an area known there as the Saman Lake. It's a small pond surrounded by many palm trees. And over these palm trees, I would say at about an altitude of 100 feet from the palm trees, it divided itself, this huge triangular object, into two different objects. It split with a luminous explosion, a soundless explosion of very bright light. And both parts of the craft, one flew very fast to the north and one flew very fast to the east and disappeared. There were other witnesses that say that there was a surjet fighter that was checking on the situation from a distance. But when that pilot of that surjet fighter saw what happened, apparently he tried to flee the area, and three small balls of red light came out from the UFO and began chasing it, and they disappeared to the north. They don't know what happened to this surjet fighter.
How many witnesses followed this event?
Up to now, more than 100 witnesses.
What are your conclusions?
Well, this incident did occur. It's a very important one. When you have more than 100 witnesses that describe the same scene to you, they make the same drawings to you, what they saw. All the details fit with all the descriptions. And we have other information due to the investigation we made. For example, that this jet craft must have been from the Navy of the United States, because that day the Puerto Rico Air National Guard had no airplanes or any air practices in the area. And Roosevelt Road Naval Station in Ceiba, a principal base in the Caribbean from the U.S., did have some air practices that night and personnel in the area, even though they denied it. But the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration in San Juan, confirmed to us that there were practices from Roosevelt Road Naval Station there.
A similar triangle-shaped UFO was observed and filmed by hundreds of witnesses in March 1990 over Belgium. Two F-16 fighter jets tried to intercept the UFO. The pilots reported that the object increased speed in just 3 seconds from 200 to 850 miles per hour. Mr. Martin, are there any official statements regarding the incidents in Puerto Rico?
As a matter of fact, due to the situation happening in the southwest of Puerto Rico, it's all around the island, but in the southwest it's more obvious, more visible, because of the many incidents that are happening there constantly. And it's a heavily populated area. The police and the civil defense and the authorities began a very intensive disinformation program, trying to ridicule and to make everything seen as a lie, as fabrication by those people who were informing all of this. But fortunately, after they began doing this, especially the Civil Defense Agency in Puerto Rico, a source of ours gave us this letter that was sent secretly by the State Director of the Civil Defense Agency of Puerto Rico, Colonel Jose M. Enoya, in which he states clearly that the situation is real, that they are keeping an eye on the situation and investigating everything, just to be sure that what is happening and these sightings and this incident with UFOs and USOs, unknown submerged objects also, because they come out from the sea and into the sea. Many people have seen this happen there. Is not a threat to the security of the people of Puerto Rico on the Puerto Rican territory. As you know, something that doesn't exist can be a threat to anyone. There's also another thing. He says here that several agencies of Puerto Rico are involved in the investigation secretly, the military, the Radio Observatory of Arecibo, and they have always denied for many years that they had anything to do whatever with the UFO situation, and it's stated here by him that they do have something to do and they are checking on the situation. And Mr. Noya, these words written by him are very important because he's the liaison between the Puerto Rico National Guard Army and the Defense Intelligence Agency. He's their man in Puerto Rico.
The USA.
Yes, and the Defense Intelligence Agency is like the CIA in the military. So he knows what he's talking about.
On the morning of May 14th, 1988, Amaury Rivera, a young man from Puerto Rico, photographed a giant disk, followed and circled by 2 jet interceptors. What makes the sensational pictures even more interesting is Rivera's claim that he had contact with the occupants of this UFO.
Hello, my name is Amaury Rivera. I live in Puerto Rico, and back in 1988, I was working in a nightclub, and there was a musical group there. One of my cousins wanted me to photograph the musical group, and she loaned me a camera with some film. On my way back home, I encountered 2 small beings, 2 small strange men, which I didn't think were men from outer space. And they took me somewhere where there were other people besides myself. Other human people, like from Puerto Rico, I guess. From here, another human being showed up. He claimed to be from a distant planet. He was dressed in black. He had a dark skin, but he was not a Negro. He had a long black hair up to the shoulders, and he spoke to us with the mouth, verbally, and no telepathic speaking. He showed us various projections, which looked very real, the projections, and he informed us about a whole bunch of things that are even still incredible to me. Then they returned me to...
What did this holographic projection show?
The holographs were mainly, the first one that I can remember was like a short trip through space. We saw where he came from, where he said to be from. We saw his people, we saw the houses that they used. And the second one was about a meteor or a rock falling to Earth in the near future, which is going to cause a lot of havoc in the world. This would fall, it's going to fall in very near the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, and those other small islands, but it's going to affect the whole world, not just Puerto Rico. The last one is that they projected was showing us how there was only going to be one government on the planet Earth. They'll be living on some sort of artificial island that's going to be floating in the middle of a dark, black, dirty sea. And then this man returned me to my car again and left me somewhere different from where the whole ordeal had started. Apparently, they took me with car and all. After this, at this given time, I heard some jets in the sky, and I still had my cousin's camera, and I took the pictures, 4 of which I'm making public nowadays.
So the jets followed the UFO?
Yes, it was. They seemed to be surveilling it. I only got to capture just one of the jets in the photograph, but there were 3 of them. Or maybe I got in one of the photos one, and in the second or third I got one of the other ones, because they would go around it very far away, and while this one was closer, and turn, very far. And by the time this one was coming back, another one was turning over there. There was always one or the other close to the object, to the UFO.
Jorge Martin has carefully investigated this case.
Amaury Rivera's case to me, is a very special one and a very important one, because in Amaury's case, he was abducted and he was taken away by aliens. One of them was human-like, and 2 small creatures that they explained to him were some type of genetical or biological organic android that they made to do some chores outside so they don't have to risk themselves in our environment. That's what they explained to him, the so-called human alien that he saw in the craft. And It's important also because of the evidences that he has on the case, because when he was released, he had a camera with him, and he was able to take pictures of the object that apparently had abducted him, the craft, flying saucer type, and also of some jet fighters from the United States, excuse me, F-14 again. In most of these cases in the island, F-14s are involved with these situations of chasing and harassment and checking on these objects when they are seen in the different areas of the island. And he was able to get them in those pictures together. So this clearly, when you see those photographs, it's obvious that the government has been lying for many years, because there's the UFO there, and there's also the jet fighters dealing with the situation, which they denied for more than 40 years. It's there.
Were you able to locate any other witnesses?
That's what I was going to explain at this moment, Michael. The Amaury's case is also very important because I have several people who apparently had been contacted by the same alien that abducted Amaury and the small ones that were with him in a separate fashion. They have nothing to do with Amaury's incident. This being, this human-like alien, is contacting people all around the area of the southwest of Puerto Rico. I have people from the town of Yauco who seem to have been contacted by this man. I have this fisherman, Andres Maldonado, who I got in contact with Amaury because he told me several things Amaury had told no one before, only I knew them, about the name of the alien and all the details that he was using to check on the people who really may have been in contact with the same being the night he was abducted, because there were about 14 other people there in the craft that night. And when Maldonado told me all this information that he couldn't know because he was not involved with the Amaury's case, I got them together. And at this moment I have about 3 different people who seem to have been in contact with the same alien. So they are doing something, and they are getting in contact with more and more people and preparing people for something. And this is very important because all this corroborates Amaury's incident also.
Other witnesses contacted Amaury himself.
So far, between 1988 and 1992, I've been able to localize 7 of these people. Because I've gone on different TV shows and different articles, and I've always been asking if anybody remembers anything similar happening to them, and that year, during that time, Mother's Day, to please get in touch with me. And I have gotten in touch with hundreds of people, but out of the hundreds, 7 definitely were there with me. I still have 7 to go. Maybe I'll never find them. Maybe they'll see this.
You investigated the Rivera case, Colonel Stevens. What was your impression?
Well, of course, Jorge Martin took me to meet Amaury Rivera shortly after I got there with a Mexican team to study some phenomena in Puerto Rico. And when I first met Amaury, he was very reluctant to describe his case because it still frightened him to think about it. And it took some time before we could develop enough confidence where he was comfortable talking to us about the case. But he would still tremble when he thought about it. He would turn pale. He'd become weak. He was frightened. But he has now reviewed the details and the points in sufficient length and depth that he can face the experience without the trauma, which he has learned to do. And today, or yesterday, we saw for the first time that he is able to manage his emotions well enough to describe that contact in considerable detail.
You carefully analyzed the Rivera photographs.
We took the pictures, yes. We took the pictures taken by Amaury Rivera to a NASA consultant facility in Scottsdale, where we put them through a computer analysis using latest state-of-the-art equipment. And we found that both the disc-shaped craft seen in the photographs and the aircraft are considerable distance from the camera, between 3 and 5 miles. We discovered that the jet fighter was moving and that the disc-shaped craft was moving relatively slow or not moving at all.
we discovered that the ambient light conditions were correct in all respects. We were able to eliminate montages, paste-ups, reflections, models, all kinds of forms of technical manipulation of photographs, and we had to conclude that the pictures were real and that they were exactly as described by the witness when he took the photographs.
Actually, Amaury Rivera was intimidated and pressured by government agents to hand over his pictures.
Well, a short time after the incident, 3 men showed up at my home in Puerto Rico, and one of them stood in their car downstairs, and they claimed to be from CIA, and they handed me 2 pieces of paper, which I was so nervous I couldn't really read, but I remember seeing the letter CIA, which is the intelligence agency from the United States, and they said that it would be easier and better for me if I handed them the photographs and the negatives, but they did not say, you know, what photographs or what negatives. They didn't specify, and I just told them that I did not know what they were talking about. And they said it would be easier because we have an order to register your house, to look through your house. And I said, well, go ahead, be my guest and look. And they looked, but they couldn't find them because I had hid them very well.
Amaury's case was not an individual case.
Well, the results are in the sense that this really is happening. There's a pattern that fits in all these cases. Most of the persons involved are women. I would say that 5 to 1, women advantage men, if we can call this an advantage, in being abducted by aliens. Most of the abductions are made by the so-called small, big-headed gray creatures, or reticulians, or whatever they are being called at this moment. And the pattern also fits with the cases in the United States and other places in the sense that they seem to be doing something with genetics. They're very interested in our genetics, in the reproductive system. There's an angle in all of this that has also to do something with spiritual development of man, and so forth.
Pat Marcattilio has been investigating cases of UFO abductions on a scientific basis for 10 years.
An abduction is an occurrence which people report where they have a vivid dream of being terrified to death of something chasing them. Sometimes it's down the street, sometimes it's in the car while they're walking, or something that they are extremely terrified of for the evening that they are sleeping in bed, or sometimes driving down the road, and the next morning they have these reoccurring vivid dreams of this terrifying time they've had, and they are almost put into a shock by it, and they don't know who to turn to tell about it, so they keep it locked up in their minds, and it begins to deteriorate their health in a lot of cases. Sometimes people have kept it in their mind for 20 years without being able to tell anyone about it because of the feeling that they would be ridiculed, or their sanity may be questioned by revealing what they have experienced.
How do you handle these nightmares?
Yes, we have perfected that, and they go through a hypnotic regression, we call it, where the doctor puts them into a relaxed state, and in this state they are able to totally relax, and in that manner begin to remember
the entire incident, and much more clearly than normal.
One of the victims of a UFO abduction was Maria Rosario from Puerto Rico.
I want to start saying that what was happened to me, it is very important, and it is very real, and it is not different of what is happening to many women, at least at the island of Puerto Rico. I want to say that this is important because it's, our lives is going to change. And I want to say too that it is real because you could speak to it and you could touch it and you could feel it very deep into your own. And yes, my experience, I was laid down on my bed, but that night it was early. It was about 10 to 10:30. I was watching television on my bed, and I heard like some strong buzzing sound. I don't know what was happening with that kind of noise. Suddenly, it was appear in my room, two little creatures. Then I was paralyzed, and I was out of conscious. Then when I open my eyes, I am in a place that they are examining my body, the whole body. And they was telling me that my body was in good conditions and my body was perfect. So they make an exam, gynecological exam, and they take out some kind of a piece from my left side ovary. So I would say that that's by the first time, the first thing, what happened. Then the second time they came in the same manner, the same way. I lost my conscience again, and when I opened my eyes, I am in a place that I describe this place like Cabo Rojo. They took me to a place in Puerto Rico, mountains of Puerto Rico, and they showed me a big baby. And when I saw that baby, I immediately, I said that I couldn't believe it because it was myself. That baby was myself. And I said to them, what's that? It is impossible. How could you make that? How could you did it? It is impossible. So, but that's me, I said. It was myself, that baby.
Do you believe the aliens cloned you from your genetic material?
Yes, from my genetical material. Yes. Because I could feel that baby myself. And she was a girl. And that's the way I feel it. I feel that baby. That baby was myself.
Did they tell you why they created this clone?
Why? I think because they need to implant very, very soon some kind of life in our planet.
Right.
Yeah.
And why do they want this?
Well, that's a little difficult for me to explain it now. I have information that I cannot remember, and I have another information that I am not going to tell to anybody. But I think that this kind of life is going to be implanted in our planet very soon. I don't know how soon, but very soon.
In other cases, the witnesses related how a small spherical object was implanted through their nose Pat Marcattilio took these reports about alien implants seriously. He subjected his clients to a magnetic resonance imaging and CAT scan of their brains, leading to the same result in all cases. A foreign body was detected in the skull within the nasal tribanates, about 3 millimeters in diameter. Evidence of the alien contact? Colonel Stevens investigated some of those reports.
Yes, we have reports of direct dialogue with alien extraterrestrial beings seen aboard spacecraft. And the contact is usually made in the language of the witness, which to me indicates a substantial project preceding this to learn the language to make the contact. In the few cases that I've been able to examine in detail, I find that the study may have taken years before the contact was made and before they know enough about the contact to communicate with him intelligently.
Is there any evidence for these contacts?
Well, the one that I investigated for 5 years in Charleston, South Carolina was that kind of a case. It had substantial proof. There were dozens of other witnesses. There were recordings of the sounds of the spacecraft. There were pictures taken by others beside the principal witness. It was watched on radar by the air traffic control people and by military radar and by the radar in the noses of transport airplanes. It left marks on the ground. It took the witness aboard and repeatedly returned to the witness. The occupants even went into the witness's home at one time. They gave him a metal object as a kind of a recognition of his overcoming his fear of those creatures.
What kind of information was given to the contactees?
Well, they generally get a description of an alien's view of our society and some of its ills. And they sometimes get a description of the alien's planet, home planet, and his society. But basically the contacts are to derive information about our planet and how we think, which they apparently analyze and send back to their superiors someplace else.
If UFOs are alien spacecraft, why are their inhabitants interested in us? I am absolutely convinced that the UFO phenomena is a real phenomena and that its authentic nucleus are spaceships from another world. This means that messengers or representatives or adventurers of an extraterrestrial civilization are visiting Earth for a long period of time, at least to observe mankind. I can imagine that a humanoid species is visiting worlds with other humanoid species because of this evolutionary relation. The critics always ask, if these extraterrestrial astronauts are coming to Earth, why don't they establish an open contact with us? Why don't they land? Why didn't this happen yet? Apart from the fact that obviously contacts and landings already happened, I could imagine that there is no good reason for an advanced extraterrestrial species to land here officially. Why should they do that? It wouldn't bring them anything. Their interest seems to be to observe and study us, and possibly some of them are descendants of our ancestors who come here to see how we evolved. Maybe they are holistic thinkers, just as a speculation, and are just interested what kind of nonsense we are doing or what progress we are making. If they are adventurous, it's enough for them to fly to our planet and just observe it. Of course, all of this is just speculation. We can just speculate about their motives. Maybe representatives from very different civilizations come with a totally different mentality, cold-hearted scientists who are observing us as we are observing insects or plants in their development without any emotional participation.
Es ist auch möglich, dass Außerirdische zu uns kommen, und zwar Abgesandte ganz unterschiedlicher Zivilisationen, die vielleicht emotional ganz anders geartet sind als wir. Vielleicht sind sie sehr kalt wissenschaftlich orientiert und sie beobachten uns eigentlich so, wie man...
We shouldn't make the mistake to project our own motivations into extraterrestrial civilizations. Maybe they think and feel completely different than we do. Of course, an emotional relationship is possible, and maybe they even come to control our development indirectly. So it's not even sure that they don't interfere. Maybe they interfere in such a discreet way, in such a hidden way, that we are not even aware of it.
Verwandtschaft vorhanden sein kann, die kommen vielleicht auch nur, um eben unsere Entwicklung vielleicht indirekt zu beeinflussen. Das heißt, es ist nicht gesagt, dass sie nicht eingreifen, sondern sie sind vielleicht doch so geschickt, dass der Eingriff und die Beeinflussung so indirekt ist, so versteckt ist, dass wir sie kaum wahrnehmen.
The evidence seems to be overwhelming to me that we've had an intimate interrelationship with them for several thousand years. I have concluded, as has Zecharia Sitchin, that the human race has probably been seeded here by high intelligence civilizations from other places. I think those who placed us here and those who have been intimately involved with our genetic manipulation and growth are interested in us. I think they're concerned with us. I think they are related to us. And I think that that's why they're so involved.
Mr. Sitchin, did the Sumerian gods, the Anunnaki, return?
Well, their reasons for coming back are, I would say, the very fact that they've been coming and going between their planet and ours every 3,600 years. And if you examine the advancement in human knowledge, you'll see that they happened in stages every 3,600 years. So the reason is that they are coming back to our vicinity, so they are coming back to visit us. Now, as to the UFOs, you know, one of the problems people have with all the UFO stories is that there are so many of them, which means that if these UFOs exist, they must be coming from somewhere close by. I mean, they are not coming from a star that is 10 or 50 light years away and are visiting us every night and over this country and over that country. So to me, the reactivation, the evidence for the reactivation of a space base on Mars suggests that the UFOs, if they are coming, and I have not seen one, but many say that they've seen them and even met whoever operates them, that they must be coming from Mars. Now, the Anunnaki do not look like those small gray beings that have apparently only skins, that are asexual, they are neither male nor female, or they are both, and have big heads and almond-shaped eyes. The Anunnaki definitely looked like us because they made us to look like them. So these are not the Anunnaki, but these are beings which we find, which I have found in the ancient depictions of the Sumerians, very similar ones, and those were the messengers of the Anunnaki. So I would say, and that's what I say in my latest book that you mentioned, that these are robots. You can call them hominids or any term that you want to use, that are intelligent enough to operate these UFOs and who are on a scouting mission to see what goes on Earth, because in previous occasions when the Anunnaki were coming and going, including the one that we know from the Bible as the story of the deluge, the great flood.
Indeed, the signs are multiplying. Since the beginning of the 1980s, strange patterns appear in the grain in connection with UFO sightings, increasing in numbers and complexity. Are they messages of the alien intelligence?
They're certainly trying to tell us something, I feel. These are messages.
My own personal view on it is, my own personal feeling about this is that they are telling us that we have reached the point of no return with the contamination of the planet. We have got to act now. If we don't, we will have gone too far and it will be irreversible. I feel this very strongly, and this is the message I think they are trying to put to us.
This pattern appeared in 1992 in Hampshire, South England. It shows two worlds in connection with each other, and below a Sumerian symbol meaning the nobles with their flying starships.
I'm in no doubt whatsoever in my own mind that these formations are being created by UFOs. There is always an increase in UFOs before the crop formations start to appear. The one goes with the other, and it has done for several years now. When you get an increase in UFO sightings, the crop circles start to appear. There's a great deal connecting these flying objects with the corn formations.
Were UFOs filmed or photographed over crop circles?
Yes, there have been 2 or 3 instances to my knowledge where people have actually recorded on video camera strange disc-like objects flying around the cornfields at about the height of the ears of corn. These show strange, brightly glowing lights, small ones, actually interweaving in and out of the corn. They jump over hedges and continue in the next cornfields, and certainly give the impression that they are intelligently controlled.
Everything indicates that we are facing the next step in the approach between man and extraterrestrials. An upcoming event of far-reaching implications as has never occurred before in our history. More frequently, entire cities or suburban colonies saw strange objects, as here near the nuclear plant of Greifswald, in what is now the former East Germany, in August of 1990. These amateur videos were taken by Dr. Ludmila Ivanova, a nuclear physician belonging to the Russian personnel of the nuclear plant.
It's developing fast. There is an increase in the numbers, there is an increase in the complexity. Everything seems to be gaining momentum. There is an increase in UFO sightings. I feel very strongly that this thing is coming to a head and something is going to occur before very long. I feel certain about it.
One of the conclusions of the study was that there was a program or a process of some kind taking place. There seemed to be some sort of a planned and organized procedure unfolding. They had evidence from the study that this phenomenon had been going on for a very, very long time, and there seemed to be some kind of an intelligent plan involved. They never were able to conclude what that would be, but that was quite a concern to the senior generals, because they didn't even at that time know what the motives were for these extraterrestrial intelligences.
What is your personal conjecture?
I've been studying this phenomenon for over 30 years, and I'm convinced that we're reaching a point where not only do we have to educate the people of the planet, but I think the aliens themselves are going to make themselves known before too long.
How would an unprepared public react?
Well, there's a danger that the public would panic if they haven't been educated, if they haven't been given some kind of an inculcation, some idea of what's going on. And that's one of the reasons why I've decided to speak out about the matter.
Maybe scenes like this one of an open-air concert of the famous singer Maya Chava in the Soviet Georgian capital Tbilisi will belong to our daily life one day. Soviet television shot the concert in the fall of 1989, broadcasting it on April of 1990, without leaving a shadow of a doubt about what was a secret in the Red Empire for such a long time. We are not alone. The extraterrestrials are here, observing us, and, indeed, the contact with them could be the greatest chance of a golden future for mankind.